Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm going to discuss the fifth episode from the book of Boba Fett titled Return of the Mandalorian. I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok now, just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. We look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. Also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. And without further ado, it's time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. All right, everyone, welcome back. And before we get into our Cloud City gossip portion of the episode, I just want to say a big thank you to all of our listeners and supporters, all the new faces that we have joining us at Force Ghost Conversations. Welcome. It is great to have you all here. Last week was probably the biggest week yet for Force Ghost Conversations. I appeared on Coffee with Kenobi, and we just had our first guest that wasn't my wife, Mercedes, on the show. So it was great to have expand the world base that is Force Ghost Conversations and to continue to grow the seats around the campfire. So it is just so wonderful to have you all here, and I hope you all enjoy the cozy deep dive Star Wars discussions that we do each and every week here. So with that, let's get into the segment of Star Wars news that I affectionately call Cloud City Gossip. And first, the big news this week is that 3 new Star Wars video games, are currently in development by Electronic Arts, aka EA, and Respawn Entertainment. One of the titles will be another installment in the Star Wars Jedi series, which I am hoping is a sequel to the great game Jedi Fallen Order. There will also be a strategy game and finally a first-person shooter. While those are just the basic details that we have right now, we don't really have anything yet regarding the release schedule or content yet, so we'll be continuing to follow this story closely as more news is unveiled. So stay tuned to Force Ghost Conversations as more news drops. Also, to highlight again the fantastic score for the first 4 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett by Ludwig Göransson and Joseph Shirley has been released by Disney Music, so be sure to give this amazing soundtrack a listen this week. I believe it can be found on iTunes, Spotify, probably anywhere on the internet you can find streaming music. These days, it'll be there. Then finally, as a friendly reminder, as you probably have guessed to this point, the Book of Boba Fett is premiering new episodes each Wednesday for, I believe, at least the next couple of weeks to go here. Be sure to check out and support this new Star Wars content, and then I hope that you will join us here on Force Ghost Conversations as we break down the entire season. And on the other side of this break, we'll be back to discuss the 5th episode for the Book of Boba Fett. Stay tuned, everyone. Welcome back, everyone, to Force Ghost Conversations. We're finally going to get into our deep dive discussion for episode 5 of the Book of Boba Fett. And spoiler warning ahead for everybody here, just in case you haven't gone and seen the episode yet. I'm going to be talking all spoiler things with it here, and there's a lot to discuss. So go watch the episode, then come back immediately to the show. Pause it right now. You have full permission. Just pause it, go watch the episode, and come right back to this point in time. And I'm gonna just go right to the start here. This episode is fantastic, everybody. It's fantastic to see the Mandalorian back in action and to understand some more tidbits that will influence his character in season 3, which I'm hoping will debut next fall, winter. It's incredible, everybody. This is the way. This is the way. This episode was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard and written by Jon Favreau. And basically what I'm saying is the force is strong with the Howard family. Of course, her father, Ron, directed Solo. He was a candidate for The Phantom Menace, and then George ultimately decided to take the role as director. And he also has the connection to Lucasfilm overall with working at being an actor in American Graffiti and directing Willow, the classic 1980s adventure film. So this is Bryce's third foray in directing a Star Wars property show, I guess you want to call it. Now with 2 episodes directed for The Mandalorian thus far in both season 1 and season 2, and now an episode of the Book of Boba Fett, which doesn't feature Boba Fett at all, actually. It's entirely a Mandalorian-based episode, which is really interesting when you think about it. This episode appropriately is titled Return of the Mandalorian, which, again, if you're looking at the trajectory of all the titles of this episode, this is probably the most apt of all of them. This is the reintroduction of the character from maybe some that haven't watched The Mandalorian. I don't know if there really are too many out there, but if you have not, this is a great kind of backdoor pilot for going to go check out those episodes, and also to get a little tease for what's coming in Mandalorian season 3, which will hopefully come out very soon. And let's get into the actual meat of the episode. There's so much to discuss here. It's very plot driven. You know, there's a few action sequences here and there, but it's a very character centric episode. And the scene starts, the episode starts, frankly, with a great little cold open, literally in a cold meat storage facility. I mean, it appears that, from what I can tell, the Mando has gone back to his bounty hunting ways. I frankly was not sure if he would continue on that path once Grogu left with Luke, but now we have our answer. And it's cool to see that his silhouette, we get that iconic image and picturesque view of his silhouette behind that, I guess, that plastic door kind of thing there. And it's so cool to see how far we've come with this character, that his silhouette is literally so iconic now. This image reminds me so much of like that Indiana Jones silhouette from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Vader's. They do the same thing with Darth Vader in Rogue One, very similarly. And now we have Din Djarin in this overall Lucasfilm canon of storytelling, and the fact that this character debuted on Disney Plus on launch day in 2019 in November, and now we're at this point where, golly, there's these are one of the most popular IP characters in all of Star Wars in the Star Wars galaxy at this point. It's amazing how far we've come, frankly. And also the meatpacking facility gave me some strong Rocky vibes too. I believe that was Rocky 1, when he's training and he goes through the meat facility. Of course, the great film Rocky Balboa too. He does a lot of meat training, so to speak, where he's punching the meat carcasses, and I felt like Din was going to start doing that too, but he didn't. I love getting the iconic line from Mando season 1: "I could bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold." Great line. This is the way, ladies and gentlemen. It is so great to see the Mando back in action, and I guess I never realized how much I was missing him. Right? It's been a year since we've had Mandalorian content. And especially when you're in the lockdown, the pandemic, you rewatch a lot of the episodes when you have some spare time. This character is very important to me now, and I'm glad that we get to see the continuation of his storyline. But I guess in terms of the timeline of this episode, it must take place quite shortly after the Mando season 2 ends. So, just in terms of a headspace where we're at this point, I think it's interesting to note. What a great fight sequence, though, to take down Koba Baez and his gang. I appreciated how Din really struggled with that Darksaber, ladies and gentlemen. It is a weapon unlike anything he's used before. There's a natural clash in philosophy there, from what I understand. The lightsaber represents leadership of a civilized age, and it's a showcasing of the passage of time and the need for Din to change, to accept new ways. I think it's super interesting that he basically hurts himself using the weapon. He's fighting against it. He's struggling to adapt to this change. And it just goes to show that it's not easy just to pick up a lightsaber and use it. Frankly, the weapon symbolizes the call. It's part of Din's hero's journey, and training will be paramount. Look at those episodes in Star Wars Rebels with Sabine, where she's learning how to use the Darksaber. Unfortunately, she had Kanan and Jarrus, Caleb Dune, aka Caleb Dune, a Jedi, to train her and how to use the Darksaber, how to connect with the blade, how to how to create a connection to something, how to become a part of something larger than yourself, how to acknowledge the past, atone for it, and make a better future. There's a lot to Din's got a lot of growing to do, and I think the dark saber will be his means to the end to get there. But wow, did I get a lot of goosebumps during that title card sequence. How cool was it that they blended Boba's now iconic theme with the Mandalorian recorder motif? As a music junkie, I found that really, really cool. And then he goes off to this ring planet or space, whatever you want to call it. It's fascinating. It reminds me of the Ring of Kafrine from Rogue One, but this is an actual this planet, this space, this territory. It's an actual like ring, and you can really just see some of this artwork that went into creating it, and the team did a fantastic job putting this one together. So why yeah, why did the Mando take this job? So we learned that he wants access to the an access pass to the substrata of this ring. But you really see that Mando's in demand for work. That person that was hiring him said, "I got more jobs for you. Come sit." Right, that Beskar and his legend must be growing. And then even to find the substrata access pass, I really liked how that Mandalorian symbol was hidden, only seeable through a certain lens. And it just shows the great lengths that these Mandalorians have had to take after the purge and what happened on Navarro in order to stay hidden. They're not ready to be fully out in the world. It's not safe yet. They're still remnants of the Empire. I mean, there's clearly clashes between what it means to be a Mandalorian for those that follow quote unquote the way. But it's so great to see the armor back. I think her wisdom was one of the highlights for me in the Mandalorian season 1. We also get to see Paz Vizsla, who is voiced by the great Jon Favreau, who of course wrote the episode, returning back. And I appreciate the long look that Paz Vizsla gives the dark saber when Din presents it. It's almost like he is called to it in a certain way, and Bryce Dallas Howard kind of lingers on this image for a while of just the stunt actor looking at this weapon. And as we know in Star Wars canon, the Vizsla clan, his ancestors certainly have the original claim to the blade, as Tar Vizsla was the Jedi Mandalorian that created the dark saber in the first place and owned it. And it really this image foreshadows the coming trial by combat within, so to speak, for the dark saber. Paz Vizsla noted that there are only 3 Mandalorians left here, and I don't know if that's just because they've scattered to the wind or if that's the resulting battle from the third episode of The Mandalorian, if they've just been taken out. But their numbers are dwindling at this point. And wow, what a cool image when the armor ignites the dark saber! Just very interesting, fascinating. So the armor gives us a lot of exposition here in this whole sequence here about what it means to be a Mandalorian, about this basically prophecy-esque thing in regards to the dark saber, what it means for the culture, Bo-Katan. So I'm gonna go by bit by piece here. So the armor confirms what we learned in the Mandalorian season 2. The dark saber must be won by Creed in battle. She says that it is sad one warrior will defeat, or not it is sad, it is said one warrior will defeat 20 and the multitudes will fall before it. So, with that, obviously, Din has the most claim to Mandalore over anyone else right now. It's not necessarily by blood, right? That's the Bo Katan thing that she would somewhat have the most claim since her sister was previously the ruler, aka the last ruler before Maul, and before the Empire even took over. However, if it is not won in combat and it falls onto the undeserving, it will be a curse unto the nation. And that prophecy certainly came true. We saw the story play out in Rebels. Sabine gives the dark saber to Bo-Katan, just giving it to her willingly. It's not through any Creed battle or anything like that. And of course, the Empire caught wind of the rebellion that was taking place on Mandalore. We saw tidbits of that in Star Wars Rebels. And then they set it ablaze through the night of 1,000 tears. The armor also continues to say that Mandalore will be laid to waste and its people scattered to the four winds. Again, parts of that prophecy did come true. We get that little history lesson forged over 1,000 years ago for the dark saber by the Mandalorian Jedi Tar Vizsla. All this information, again, ladies and gentlemen, is in Star Wars Rebels. So go watch that if you really want some more deep dives into this culture and the lineage of the dark saber. It's great stuff. Go check it out. This is the way. So Din confirms to Paz Vizsla that Moff Gideon has been taken by the New Republic for interrogation. So we get a little bit more of what happened to the Moff after the events of the season finale for season 2 of The Mandalorian, and he will face justice for his crimes. The armorer says that the blood of millions of Mandalorians lays on his hands, but honestly, based off because they're going to show what happened, honestly, in the Night of 1,000 Tears, and just a bit here in the episode. But honestly, I beg to differ because I bet it's more in the billions. Frankly, the Empire under his leadership completely obliterated the planet of Mandalore, and there was a lot of people living on it. So they there. I think that is a very conservative number. Tragically, Din has this viewpoint that he thinks he'll be executed by the New Republic Tribunal, but the armor cast out. And I wanted to pose that question for you all. What do you think? It'll be interesting to see, frankly, how the politics of the New Republic, how do they mirror the Old Republic? If there's corruption in the Senate, if there's corruption in the courts, if there's still like sympathizers to the Empire, I would love to kind of see more of the kind of the political intrigue and aspect of what's going on in this timeline and what is quote unquote canon at this point for that. But it will justice be a complicated issue? It'll be interesting to find out. Fans, of course, at home got a fun wink and nod about the whole Mythosaur legend, aka from the holiday special. That little Boba Fett cartoon from the infamous 1978 holiday special. And she also noted that these things are in Legends, aka not canon. If I have to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I am a little bummed, though, that the Beskar spear has been smelted down already. I thought it was a really great addition and cool weapon for the Mando's arsenal. But the intent, as we find out, is to have a little foundling armor for Grogu. And if that's the end result, then so be it. That seems to be where things are headed at this point, and I want to see that little guy in some little bitty armor. That is all I ever want. So just a little note for canon there, based off of what the armorer says. The mere existence of that Beskar spear is a threat to all Mandalorians, and that Beskar armor should only be used, or that Beskar should only be used for armor. I like that philosophy personally. Defense and not attack is the most honorable way for fighting, and it's very similar to a Jedi philosophy. And then Din does address the elephant in the room. He asks directly to the armor about Bo-Katan, and the armor immediately claps back with, Bo-Katan is a cautionary tale. She noted that Bo-Katan's house, the Kree's house, lost sight of the way. They lost their way and we lost our world, she says. Their sect of Mandalorians was on the moon of Concordia, which is how she notes that they were able to survive the Great Purge, because, of course, Concordia is one of the moons in the Mandalore system, but it's not full Mandalore. And Concordia is where Death Watch was and where all the foundlings were that followed this kind of like quote unquote the way. They were deemed, conservative, not if the ones on Mandalore were more progressive, right? They took their helmets off. They kind of went away from their warrior past, and that kind of sect of Mandalorians that followed that way still went over to Concordia, at least based off what I understand from Star Wars Rebels and the Clone Wars, where these stories are a bit more explored. So then we actually got to see some images of this Great Purge, what they are calling again the Night of 1,000 Tears, and it's really tragic and terrifying. I definitely got Terminator 2 vibes seeing the K2SO type droids mopping up the remnants of the Mandalorians in that really impactful image. She said, the armor, that only those that walked the way escaped the curse prophesied in the creed. But if I could push back on that a bit, that is not true though, because Bo-Katan and Koska Reeves and other Mandalorians are still around, and she believes that the armor, I should say, the armor believes that their staunch adherence to the way is what keeps them around, and their belief in this ritual is strong. But obviously, I don't necessarily think that that's true. Din still, at the end of the day, wants to see Grogu, and me too, man. Let's be honest. Din notes that loyalty and solidarity are the way, and is different from the path that Jedi follow, though. And honestly, I would argue that those ideologies are more similar than what he's leading on to. And to me, both Mandalorians and Jedi have semblances of loyalty and solidarity in their teachings. Those are both basic tenets. No denying that. I don't, in my opinion. I think that the ways in which they differ more align in the view towards power and violence, and in my understanding, Mandalorians will strike first, while a Jedi will lean towards defense. But at the end of the day, folks, it is not lost on me that that little package of armor is shaped just like Grogu's head when folded into the napkin. Come on, it's gonna happen one day. We're gonna see this little green Yoda, baby Yoda guy in this cool Beskar armor. Be great. And Din, I loved seeing Din train with the armor. He needs to learn how to use the darksaber. He's fighting against the blade, as she notes. It is getting heavier. He's fighting against this change, this ideology, this change in philosophy, this internal turmoil within him. He needs to follow, aka the Sabine path that we saw in Star Wars Rebels, accept who he is and become one with the blade. As we've seen already, the darksaber is unforgiving. It will show no mercy. He cut himself with that thing, and he was not doing really well fighting with it. It will show no mercy to the wielder or the recipient of its blows. It doesn't work that way. And then we get finally the foreshadowed showdown between Din and Paz Vizsla. I love the ritual of it all, ladies and gentlemen. The trial reminds me of an old West samurai-esque duel. Paz Vizsla eventually got too cocky, though, and went for the darksaber instead of winning the fight. He saw that jewel, that thing laying at the end of the tunnel, and he took the quick and easy path and thought he had an easy win, but that allowed Din to get the upper hand. Din, though, says that he took off his helmet, and he is ostracized from the clan, right? They believe that the way is what kept them alive, and those that don't adhere to it are no longer Mandalorians, as she noted. The armorer said to him, "You are no longer a Mandalorian." And according to this creed, he can only be restored if he goes into the living waters beneath the mines of Mandalore, which of course have been destroyed. And this moment is a really formative one for Din, I think. He knows nothing else but the way ever since he was a little kid. I know that it is tough, but I think that this will be a learning experience for him. He will now be able to determine his own path and not be so mired in the dogma of the way, so to speak. So Din, in disgrace a little bit, leaves, and he's off on a different adventure now. And it looks like he's going to Tatooine to meet with Pelimoto. And on the way there, we get a little fun nod as he boards that kind of that Starline cruiser type transport vehicle ship, and get a fun little nod to the type droid that is basically DJ Rex that you can see at Galaxy's Edge. If you go to the cantina, he plays the music there, and it's obviously formerly from Star Tours, the great ride at Disneyland, Disney World, and evidently Disneyland Paris, as we learned last week. Which is also when Din is on the Starliner. It's got a fun little moment with that Rhodian kid. I'm sure that most of us had a similar moment or interaction on public transit before with little kids sitting in front of us. Cool stuff. So Din, obviously, like I mentioned, Din goes to Tatooine to see Pelimoto in regards to a new ship to replace the Razor Crest that was destroyed in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. And we get a big reveal, ladies and gentlemen. We get to see a little BD droid unit. And if you've not played the game Jedi Fallen Order yet, do so immediately. That sequel is on the way, I hope. And play that game immediately. Go get it on your PS4, your Xbox One, your Series X, your PS5s, what have you. Go play that game so you can have the joy of seeing a little BD droid all the time. I'm not sure yet if it is the same droid, if it's BD1 that was actually in the game, but the mere fact that the same model exists in this series just shows how interconnected Lucasfilm currently is with its Star Wars storytelling. And Pelly's droid pool also includes R5D4 from A New Hope, the droid that Uncle Owen chooses, but instead of R2D2, and then had a bad motivator, and a couple of pit droids, most famous from the pod race in The Phantom Menace. And the ship that she had that's a replacement for the Razor Crest is none other than the classic N1 starfighter. And wow, those bad boys can be seen a lot in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, particularly in the end battle sequence when Anakin accidentally goes up into the space battle and takes out the Trade Federation ship. The starfighter that he's in is an N1. And wow, did I lose my mind when I saw that ship. I love the Phantom Menace unapologetically, and it just warms my heart seeing more things connected from that timeline. And it is definitely a big help to the Mandalorian that the ship is off the grid since it is pre Empire and can jump into hyperspace without a docking ring. They just need to put it together first, which clearly is a work in progress. Tatooine sure is a garden of many bounties, as Pelly notes, and I'm glad that Din questions the methods for how the Jawas come by these items that help to put together this wonderful classic but old starfighter. And it is something that I too, as a fan, have wondered from time to time. We then learn that we get that weird bit of detail that Pelly dated a Jawa for some time, and I'm not sure how that ended, but I honestly would like the story at some point in time. Did have certainly come a long way from his introduction in The Mandalorian. He couldn't even be around a droid at one point, and now he's working side by side with everyone. His character growth and journey has been an astounding part of this series. Oh, or I guess the Mandoverse, if you want to call it that. The sacrifice of IG-11 from the end of season 1 of The Mandalorian has really had its lasting effects on his character. But ladies and gentlemen, we got to see an N1 fly again, and it is so cool. His first flight over the skies of Mos Eisley and then in the space above Tatooine makes my prequel loving heart burst with joy. We know that astromech space that she took out is where little Grogu is going to be flying one day. Mark my words. And honestly, when he's on this little first flight sequence, I got a little teary eyed. I was a little kid again watching the Phantom Menace, and we got to see the route for the pod race again. We got to see Beggar's Canyon. So many warm memories as a kid watching that sequence in the Phantom Menace over and over for me. It is great seeing that area too, where Anakin went out of bounds, and from the track, and there's still some debris there. That is just really cool. And the whole sequence just reminds me of one of my other favorite scenes in all of cinema, which is the first flight sequence from Man of Steel, the classic Superman film from 2013. The score at this point is phenomenal too, and it just brings a sense of childish wonder to my heart. Just bravo, Bryce Dallas Howard, for getting this emotion out of me. We also got a reappearance of Carson Teva from season 2 of The Mandalorian. And the other, actually, so just for those at home, the other guy in the New Republic fighter X-wing was the body double for Luke Skywalker in the Mandalorian season 2 finale. Cool connection there, everybody. But it looks like they're still laying the seeds for the Rangers of the New Republic show. I don't know if that show is going to come out still, if they're going to reevaluate what it would play out to be. Maybe they do more seasons of Mandalorian or Boba Fett or Ahsoka and just tie in those pieces. But he's still, Carson Teva is still trying to put some pieces together about the remnants of the Empire stuff. So I hope we get to see a bit more of that. And when Din eventually returns back down to Pelimoto's landing docking area, he says the classic line, "Wizard, wizard, Annie, wizard." Fennec Shand is up there as just on the perch waiting for him to return. She pops down and recruits Din for the job, as she alluded to that they were going to do in Book of Boba Fett episode 4. And Din does the job on the house for Boba, which is it's a nicety for him to do. But first, he says he needs to see a little friend. So basically, we're at the end of the episode, and that's where it ends off at. And I have some questions. Do we get to see Grogu next episode? Does Luke appear? Does Luke train Din with the Darksaber? Or are these stories getting saved for the Mando season 3? Some of the bigger questions are, as well, where do we think Boba Fett goes next week? Will Boba even be in it? All kidding aside, I think we're getting to the war part of this series. The pikes still have to be dealt with, and loose ends need tying up. Again, we're getting into some question territory now with the Mandalorian season 3, and I don't really have answers at this point, and I don't want to speculate at all. I just want to soak it all in and enjoy it for what it is. But what does this overall mean for the Mandalorian season 3? We got a little bit of tidbits for this in the episode, and I think it's almost a backdoor pilot for a season that it's coming down the pipeline, just to get us more excited for it in the coming future instead of having to wait 2 years for it. I think Din Djarin is still going to continue to search for Grogu, because who knows where Luke is at with his temple. He might not have had it set up yet. But at the same time, I think Din needs to hone more of his own identity. Now that he is no longer, quote unquote, a Mandalorian, he can make his own way throughout the galaxy. Maybe he will link up with Bo-Katan. I don't know. I honestly, I would think that she's probably going to be hunting him down for that Darksaber. She wants to rule Mandalore. She thinks she has the most claim to the throne, and she needs that Darksaber in order to make it legitimate, and it needs to be won through combat. I'm very intrigued to see where this storyline goes. But in the end, ladies and gentlemen, all credit goes out to the wonderful Bryce Dallas Howard. This episode is phenomenal and continues to add to the great canon that is the Book of Boba Fett. I can't wait to see what happens next week, and I sincerely hope that Bryce gets more work in the Star Wars universe very soon. So those are all my thoughts for this episode this week. What did you think about episode 5, Return of the Mandalorian, for the Book of Boba Fett? Are you loving this series as much as I am? I hope you are, and I hope you continue along with the ride. Go watch the episodes on Disney Plus. Come back to this episode. Come back for our episode next week, where we'll break down episode 6 and talk about it, discuss it, all the cool things, the tidbits, the details, all of that. But we'll be back next week with a new episode. And I hope you all have a great week. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. We would love to connect with you there and continue the conversation and grow this Star Wars community. But we'll be back next time with a new episode, and may the Force be with you.